a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Join Mike Broomhead for Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Copper is essential to Arizona's economy and to America's future. Learn more at resolutioncopper.com.
Another episode of Amazing Arizonans, and I can't think of a person that fits the bill more than our guest this week. Very honored to have him. Diamondback legend, Major League Baseball legend, Randy Johnson. Mr. Johnson, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
Obviously, there are so many questions. You're such an interesting person. The more I've done my homework, the more questions I have for you. I want to start, instead of starting with your Major League career, where I think most people would start, your love for photography that started early in life, but now seems to be a passion of yours that you are so good at. Where did that come from? What started that passion?
I think probably just at some point in high school, and then it elevated when I went to college and was at USC, and I studied photojournalism there and got into, black and white photography and developing my own film and working for the Daily Trojan, the college newspaper there on campus. And, a couple of years of that just opened my eyes, and it was a lot of fun. And then my junior year, I got drafted out of USC in '85 to the Montreal Expos. So then photography naturally took a back seat, and I was on the path to trying to get to the major leagues. And, periodically I would get my camera out, and but it was not until I retired after the 2009 season that I really dove back into photography and had the ability to travel and no commitments towards baseball the way I did for 22 years. There was really no off season for me. When the season was over, I trained with my personal trainer and got ready for spring training. And it was a, really a vicious cycle because, in between that, having surgeries and getting older and just trying to, stay at the same level of competitiveness that I had always known to be at.
How would the world change? Because when you kind of had to walk away from photography, when you left college and you went into the professional baseball, when you went back into photography, there have been so many technological advancements. Did that help you? Was it something you didn't like as much? Are you still able to do it the old school way? Do you like how it's changed?
Yeah. I don't have a preference one way or the other. I mean, I have several film cameras that I, started with, and now I have several digital cameras. And depending upon what I'm shooting in my travel or here in the state of Arizona, will dictate what I bring. When I have made a habit of going to Africa since I've retired. I've been about 7 times now and had several photography exhibits here in the Valley, and even have a coffee table book out now on my trips to Africa. The subject matter there will dictate what I need. So obviously animals fast, and you need to be able to bring the subject matter in closer. And so that is primarily when I use my digital camera equipment. But if I should go up to Monument Valley and, I'm up at the Mittens up there, and I'm just sitting, relaxing, I may have a Pentax 6.7, which is a medium format camera because the mountains aren't moving. And so that kind of dictates when I use and what I use.
Do you have a favorite subject matter, or is it just different challenges with different subjects? So which is it for you?
No, I don't have a favorite subject matter. I love traveling. I love going to Africa. I love going to Europe, and I love going up north and seeing places. I've lived here, since the mid 90s. When I was playing with another team, we would live here during the off season for the weather, obviously. And I never really took the time because I didn't have that time, But like I said, when the baseball season was over, I got right back. After about 2 or 3 weeks of resting my body, I would start conditioning, getting ready for spring training again. and I never really had the chance to go out and explore what was in my own backyard. And since I've retired, I've had that opportunity. Not a great deal of it, but it's opened my eyes, and then obviously a lot of travel over to Africa as well.
And there's been a lot of very positive response to your photography. The exhibit that just recently was at Chase Field, and like you said, the coffee table book, and you've had a bunch of different exhibits. How does it matter to you to have a public positive response, or do you do it mostly just for your own satisfaction?
Well, I initially just kind of did it because I enjoy photography. And then I was never on social media, and I never had a photography website. So when I dove into the photography, and it was like overwhelming to me. I wanted to show my work and share it with people, especially in places that, I traveled to the first time, and maybe someone has never been there before. I think the greatest response I've gotten from people, I had an exhibit in Cooperstown, New York, a couple of years ago, and it was my first photography exhibit there for about 7 months. And the response that I was getting there through my social media, and even when I was in Cooperstown for the gallery exhibits, was that people had never been to Africa before. And then when they saw my exhibit, it inspired them to look into maybe going themselves now. There's nothing that I've taken that's profound and, overwhelming. It's just something that I've tried to capture, an animal or a moment, and share it with people. And so at that point, after I started getting into this a little bit further, well, then I felt like, well, let's get on social media. That's a good platform, pretty much just to share my photography, whatever that was at the moment. And then a little bit of baseball, people enjoy that as well. And then I had designed a photography website, and I felt like, the social media is almost more instantaneous. You put something up there and it's out there and you get a response. And, I never claimed to be Ansel Adams. I just enjoy it. It's just in a lot of ways, the photography to me has parallels to baseball and what my mindset was every fifth day when I performed. And what I mean by that is, there was a great deal of preparation and research physically and mentally going into the game preparation leading up to game day. And it's the same thing if I go on a trip somewhere. What camera equipment am I preparing to bring? What day, what time of the year am I going? And, being prepared so you're not caught off guard, and being prepared for something that maybe you weren't prepared for. And it's the same way as having that focus, Mm-hmm. It's a great escape for me when I'm anywhere. Could be sitting, at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for the sun to come up outside the Colosseum in Rome. Or it could be sitting in the back of a car drinking a cup of coffee and watching the Great Migration across, of wildebeest crossing the Mara River. It's just, it consumes me because, it's pretty awesome to see this when I never got to see it before. And now I'm in a different part of the world, and, I'm not in a ballpark, and I'm trying to capture that moment and, not only to put on my wall, but thankfully, have an exhibit and share with people and get a response.
But isn't it, I'm going to make a leap here. When you were playing baseball, you were the subject matter. All of those people just had their eyes glued to you. this is sharing a different part of you, though, because in any artistic expression, whether it's music or it's a written word or it's movies, you're kind of taking your vision of something and exposing it to people and showing a different subject matter. Was that a different kind of revelation for you, of you sharing a different piece of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a passion of mine. I enjoy it. And but when you put it out there, then you become vulnerable and you become judged. And, I was judged on the baseball field based on my performance. And if I didn't pitch well, why didn't you pitch well? And if I did pitch well, you were supposed to because you're Randy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm in a completely different arena. I don't pay my bills with photography. I just enjoy it. It's relaxing to me. It puts me in the same kind of mindset that I enjoyed being in, minus some of the, I don't know, let's say not so friendly circumstances on game day.
Yeah.
And I enjoy preparing to go somewhere. Then I research and look at other photographers, see what they're shooting at that location, not to replicate, but get an idea. But yeah, you become vulnerable when you put something out there, and but everything has been really well. People have been very complimentary, and they're happy to see that I'm happy now. I smile a lot more. I guess I didn't smile that much when I pitched. And I just seem to be in a place now where, I'm having more fun. There's no expectations here. That's the greatest thing is, I never claimed to be a great photographer. I just put it out there, and, if someone enjoys it, that's great. Mm-hmm. But, I do try to get better, just like pitching. Every time I go somewhere, I try to get better at what I'm trying to accomplish.
It's a great way to segue, I think, because you and I had run into each other. You probably won't remember, but obviously because of your status as an athlete, when you go anywhere, people will remember the time they saw Randy Johnson somewhere. Right after the Cy Young, I think it was, I saw you at the grocery store at Thompson Peak Parkway and Pima. And you were getting a Sunday paper, and I had just said hello to you, and you said hello back. And I remember walking to my car and thinking, I wonder how many times somebody wants to greet you when you're in public, and how annoying it must get to not have a personal life. At that time in your life, everywhere you went, especially here in the Valley, everybody wanted a piece, at least a moment of acknowledgement from you. What was that like?
Well, it wasn't annoying, and I can say that now. I maybe didn't view it that way then. Maybe I may have had more of the opinion that you have. But I think when you get removed from something and you have an opportunity to have the dust settle, and you look at what you did and the special things that you were able to be a part of, and you shared those special moments with 30, 40,000 people every 5 days. And I did it for 22 years in 7 other cities too.
Yeah.
I'm greatly appreciative of sharing those moments and the fans enjoying those moments. And, there wasn't a lot of expectations on my pitching, just like there wasn't on my photography when I first started. It took me a while to get to that level. And then when I did get to that level, it was really a double-edged sword. Kind of like what I said to you earlier was, well, if I don't pitch well, you can't sugarcoat that, People come to the ballpark that 5th day because they knew I was pitching. They expected a certain standard of my pitching that day. On any given day, unfortunately, I might not live up to that ability or that expectation, and I would fail. And that came with the territory. And I also needed to understand that's part of the game, and quickly shake that off. But there was moments when I was younger, knowing that my teammates and the fans and the organization, kind of rely on me because of my record in my past, that when I failed, I felt like I let a lot of people down as well. And there's nowhere that I can go really, because I'm still 6'10". So yeah, I cut my hair and I don't have a mullet anymore, and I'll put glasses on and a hat, but you're not hiding with any of that, and that's fine. I have a lot more time for people, and I just felt like I was always on the go too. In my life of baseball, I was, I had family, I slept, I ate, I worked out, I pitched, all in that. And for about 5-6 months, and then I trained just me and my trainer. And then, after the holidays and family, then I was preparing for spring training. Then we were like 6 weeks away from spring training, and it just was a really big cycle for me. I feel very fortunate that I was able to play as long as I did. 26 years in the major leagues, 4 years in the minor leagues, and then 22 at the major league level. I had a lot of experiences, a lot of great experiences that I'm so thankful that I was able to share with a lot of different cities that I played for.
Who did you look up to in Major League Baseball? Did you have mentors? Were there pitchers that you were going to when you were young and when you said in photography, you look at what other photographers are doing for ideas. Did you have other pitchers you looked up to or that you went to, and did you get advice from them?
Well, when I was younger, and we're talking like in the 70s, I grew up outside of the Bay Area, so I was watching the Oakland A's play a lot, and there was a pitcher on the team, Vida Blue.
Yeah.
He was a left pitcher with a big high leg kick, and, I might have been like in 6th or 7th grade when he was pitching for the Oakland A's, and so there wasn't a lot of left-handed pitchers, so I didn't really have an opportunity to watch a lot of pitchers, so I gravitated towards him. So I kind of emulated him, and I would do his mechanics and his windup, and so I was Vida Blue when I was out in the front yard playing catch with my dad or a friend, and then obviously down the road, I had the opportunity to meet him. But then, while I was in the major leagues, early in my major league career, Tom House, who went to USC and played in the major leagues for a while, and then became the pitching coach for Nolan Ryan. They both took me aside early in my career in 1992 and helped me with my mechanics. Being 6'10", wasn't as helpful then as it was inevitably would become. It was hard to repeat my mechanics, long arms, long legs, and I really needed to get their insight, and it really, one little small ingredient of mechanics really turned my career around. And obviously I had to incorporate it in my mechanics because I was doing it incorrectly, but it was a lot about balance and how I was landing. And from that point on, after the 92 season, then it seemed like things really took off, the next season, 93, until, really when my career ended. I had a lot of fun then. I was having fun because I was being consistent, and that's what you want to be, especially as a pitcher. You dictate, your performance will dictate the outcome of the game, kind of like a quarterback. Everybody watches you for that split moment, and then when you release the ball, all eyes are wherever they're going to be. But, I really enjoyed the moment while it lasted. I learned a lot from a lot of different people, but the most impact that I had was from Tom House and Nolan Ryan, and that was in the early 90s.
The mental toughness of being on that stage and the demand there for excellence, the pressure that you were under, I think watching you as the MVP of the World Series and watching how tough that 7-game series was and the amount of time you had to pitch and starting and everything that went along with that, That MVP, there's got to be a special meaning there because of the work that it took and being on that stage and beating the Yankees and everything it took, but you're such an integral part of those wins. What did that mean when you were named the MVP?
Well, it was, obviously a great moment. But for me personally, winning the World Series, there's Hall of Fame baseball players that have never won a World Series, and then there's some that have won several. And for me to get to that, platform with another team, and then beat that team in the World Series, out of 30 teams, there's only 2 left, and you're one of them. And then most importantly, leading up to that point, all of the innings and all of the pitches that you pitch in the regular season, and now you go into the postseason, and all through that whole level, I had pitched probably 6 or 7 other times, and then I pitched in Game 2 and Game 6, and then the next day, less than 24 hours, pitching Game 7. So, the fact that I was able to be on my game was the greatest, achievement that I probably ever had in my career, that I was able to deliver and do it in a fashion that people expected to see. I think, because there's other moments, earlier in the postseason of other years where I wasn't as successful as I was in 2001.
When you look at your association with the Diamondbacks now, do you feel how much the fans appreciate you now and that history of what you brought to this team? And and with all due respect to the other sports, the only major sport championship bringing it here to the Valley. Do you know how much do you feel how much the fans appreciate you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I do up in Seattle. I played longer in Seattle. I played in Seattle for 10 years, and I still get people that, reach out to me through social media and say that you'll always be a Seattle Mariner in our eyes. I did some pretty amazing things there too, especially in 1995. I won my first Cy Young up there, and I went 18-2, and there was a lot of political upheaval going on there in order to keep the Seattle Mariners there. They were wanting a new baseball stadium, and the team was always striving to do well, but was in a tough division, and now it became a political kind of season where as the team continued to succeed, more fan base came out and watched, and inevitably, because of the year that the team had, it went in past, and they got a new baseball stadium up there. So, I feel like I was a big part of that as well, winning my first Cy Young and going 18-2, and, beat the Yankees a couple of times in the playoffs during that series. And then eventually you just hit a wall. You feel like, unfortunately, the workload just takes its toll, and I'm just thankful that, I have memories in all these different cities that I played for. Every team that I played for has a special moment in my career.
Do you take time to talk to the young players now? Because this is the Diamondbacks team now is a team that people love to cheer for. It's a great young core of players. And do you take time to talk to them about cherishing moments or about challenging moments and overcoming that adversity? Do you do that with these young players?
I do that when I get asked, and a lot of visiting players will reach out. And Paul Skeen is a young superstar, won Rookie of the Year with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I've talked to him on multiple occasions, as recently as last week. Chris Sale, left-handed pitcher with the Atlanta Braves, pitched here last week against the Diamondbacks. He reached out and wanted to talk. So I enjoy doing that because I feel that is, something that I should be doing because it was done for me. And even if it wasn't done for me, I still try to enlighten, a pitcher on how things are. All you're trying to do is, hey, you're going to have to go out there and pitch and do this. I'm just going to tell you what you may go through along the way. And maybe by trial and error, some of the things that will ease the burden on your body along the way, working out and swimming and just all of, nutrition and hydration and all the things that I learned over 6 years, trying to, give them some insight and just help along the way. But early on, I did a lot of talking and with the Diamondbacks minor league organizations. I would travel and for a long weekend and go and visit A-ball or AA and watch the pitchers throw bullpens and sit there and watch and talk to them and then, watch the game. And I enjoyed doing that. But I think the game has also changed a little bit where, I've been out of the game for 13 years now. And when I say the game has changed, well, the workload for a pitcher has changed. It's not expected for a pitcher to do the things that me and my peers were doing, or even the people before me did. That's not the workload of today's pitcher. And if someone wants to talk, I do some small talk, with the pitchers, but I'm not on the field. I do go to games. I enjoy watching. The games from the seat. I'm more of a fan now than I've ever been. When I don't go to the game, I watch at home. But I think, I enjoy trying to help people that want it. I mean, if they're seeking you out, then they're doing that for a reason. And I kind of look at it as a badge of honor when they do that.
Yeah, I would imagine with your success that any young player would want to soak in as much knowledge as they could get from you, if nothing else about mindset, because I guess for a fan watching, we expect performance, but I don't know that unless you've been around anybody that's been a professional athlete, and I've been blessed to be around a few, the preparation and the work that goes into game day is what takes such a toll on you. It's got to be mentally as well, as much as it is physically. That is a lot of preparation.
Well, it's that everybody's a little different, some people will, exceed expectations because something happens in their life, they'll have a pivotal conversation with someone that was impactful, or they have someone in the family that dies, and they look at that as, being able to dig down a little bit deeper than maybe you did in the past. So everybody has their own way of going about their business. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's only doing well. You get paid. It's a profession. It's, I started playing when I was 7 years old and I retired when I was 46. A majority of my life was playing baseball and sports. And now I'm living the second half of my life, but I won't live longer than the time that I was playing sports. That's how much sports and baseball consumed my life. So I know a lot. I can see watching things based on experience. I have that, whereas someone that maybe has never pitched at that level or even pitched in the major leagues may not see that, but they may see other things. I may have a suggestion, but I usually just keep those to myself. The game is different now. And so when I go to the ballpark, it's just to watch a game now.
You had mentioned earlier that you always try to be better, even in your photography, like when you played baseball. You were such a fierce competitor. Do you still have that competitive spirit? And if you do, what's your competitive outlet?
Well, I'm not competitive anymore. So, I'm not pitching in front of 40,000 people and my job, I'm going out there and, I'm facing 9 batters from the other team. And my objective is to shut you down. I don't have that mindset anymore. Thank goodness, and when it comes to photography, my mindset is just, going and having fun. And, I don't even do interviews per se really that much anymore. And when I do, it's mostly about my photography, but the baseball has opened the door for that. So I'm very appreciative.
When I should have asked this earlier, but when did you know that you were a good enough pitcher to play in the major leagues? And then the other end of that, to bookend it, when did you know it was time to walk away from being a major league pitcher?
Well, those are both, the back end of that question is pretty easy. The beginning, when did I know? Well, I think as soon as you start having some success and you feel like you can compete with the people that you're facing, and you can at times do well, and because that's what you're there to do, and that's how you're evaluated. If you do well, then you stay. If you don't, then you go somewhere else, and you got to be consistent. It's pretty harsh reality, but that's really the bottom line. They're paying you. You need to perform at a high level, and so I think it was probably in the early 90s when I started seeing some consistency. And, in 92, I finished second in the Cy Young. And then, I felt like, my body of work is starting to, there's obviously areas that I need to clean up, but overall, making all my starts and not being hurt all year and being competitive and having good games, a majority. That's when I felt like I was walking off the mound, or when the season would be over. I could say, yeah, I belong, but I need to continue to work hard and improve. And I would say that was in the early 90s. And, when I retired, I finished my career in San Francisco. I won my 300th game there. And, being 46, I was in a different frame of mind. It wasn't 95 to 100 anymore. I'm facing kids that are 15 to 18 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me. And I knew where I was, at my career. I wasn't, the same person as I was, but I enjoyed it as much, if not more, when I was 46, because I was in a different place. The game was still difficult, and even probably a little bit more because I was older and didn't have the stuff that I had when I was younger. So now I'm pitching to contact more, and I'm smiling inside when I get a double play. Whereas when I was 30 years old, I was trying to strike all three batters out, And so it was unfortunate that late, that year, I would tear my rotator cuff in a game swinging the baseball bat, not pitching, and I would rehab just enough that I could pitch to one batter at the end of the year and strike him out. And then that would be the ending of my, 22-year career. But when I tore my rotator cuff, that was the defining moment, because I was having so much fun prior to that. I wasn't the Randy Johnson, the dominating strikeout pitcher then, but I was still winning ball games and still competitive and still bringing something to the table. And there's a lot to be said for someone that wants to win and has a desire to win and has been there. And even though he doesn't have the arsenal that I did, I still went out there with the demeanor that I did and knew how to get and navigate through a game like someone younger that may have better stuff than me. But it was definitely, the writing was on the wall when I hurt my shoulder and I had to retire. But I'm sure I would have had a tough decision at the end of the year. But the decision essentially was made for me.
Was there a period of time, because it sound I'm not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're at peace now and you're enjoying your life, as you said, the second half of your life. But was there a period of time after retirement that you missed the game, that you missed competing?
Well, I think the first couple of years, you realize that, after Christmas, or after the season's over, you go on a vacation with the family, you come back and you start working out. After Christmas, you start playing catch and getting ready for spring training. That was a cycle every year for 20 years. So those moments would come up and they would remind me, oh, wait, I don't need to do that. I'm retired. Then I would watch a baseball game, and so I still felt like I had the belly, the beast was still in my belly, if you will, and I still wanted to pitch. But I also knew that I couldn't because of my shoulder, and I was 46 years old. But that's the competitive nature that I had when I was 30, and that's why I did what I did, because I had the desire to want to go out there and do that, and I utilized all my talent and maximized that through the people that helped me and then through the trainers that I had along the way as well.
One of the benefits as a fan that we have now with social media, with Instagram and others, is we are privileged sometimes to see posted videos of when professional athletes after their career get the phone call or the notification that they've earned the Hall of Fame. I have not seen a video of yours. I don't know how that you responded. Do you mind sharing with us what that was like to get that notification that you're a Hall of Famer, and what does it mean to you to be called a Hall of Famer?
Well, first of all, I had some family and friends at the house, and I may have been asked, but, everything seems to be social media and out there for the public to see. And I think sometimes it's just kind of fun to share certain moments with family and friends and not the world. The world will know soon enough, but I don't even know if I was asked to have a camera crew. I may have, but it's not important. I was with some family and friends, and I got a phone call, and I got notified from Major League Baseball that I had been voted to the Hall of Fame with my class of John Smoltz and Craig Biggio and Pedro Martinez. And so from that point on, I was, it takes a while for that to sink in. First of all, you have to wait 5 years. So the 5 years that I had retired, I think the fire had gone out in me a little bit, by that time. And so, I wasn't wound as tight, and, I was having more fun. I was starting to travel, and, that was truly, when I got that phone call, to be able to share it with family and friends, it was just a great moment. I didn't wait up, the night before. I knew that, I either would or I wouldn't get the phone call. Baseball is important to me, but it was my life, but yet I don't want to say it, and it did consume me, but I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Yeah. Because a lot of parts, friends, family, a lot of times they get neglected along the way, and, because of me working with my trainer, I got to, miss something, or being on the road, and not seeing my kids' assembly or a play or a baseball game or a soccer game. And so, for the moments that I had, especially going to the Hall of Fame, it wasn't about me. It was about the people that helped me along the way. It was about some of my old friends that came and accompanied me that I played Little League Baseball with. My best friend, he's passed away now, but him and his mom came. Some of my college teammates, all of some of my other closer friends that I played minor league baseball with, and obviously all my children and my family, my mom who was alive then. and sharing my baseball with them because they were there and they forfeited a lot so I could do what I did, especially the family, my children and my wife, they forfeit things, for the better of me to do what I wanted to do, and that's play baseball. And so there's a lot of sacrifice, and people say, well, you make a lot of money. Well, money doesn't buy you happiness. Money won't keep you married. Money doesn't make your family, stay together and all that, you have to work on that as a person. And when you're not there a lot, it is what it is. And the longer you play, the harder it becomes. And so for that, I wanted to make my family remember the moment more than me, because it was just as special for them as it was for me, pitching my 300th game in Washington, D.C. against the Washington Nationals. My son was the bat boy, and I thought that was, to me, I'll remember that because he was super young then. And I just thought that was, you see a lot of that now, father and son things and family involved and all that. But to me, back then, that was a pretty special moment. And all my family and my friends come out on the field and just sharing those moments. My career's, over, especially when you go to the Hall of Fame and you're able to share all that.
The reason why we started to do these podcasts is because what you just said is such an insight to who you are as a human being. And as a fan, we all want to have everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants a picture. Everybody wants an autograph. Everybody wants a moment, but they take that moment with them. The goals of these podcasts was to learn more about you. And I feel like talking to you for this short amount of time, it makes me so happy that you're willing to spend this time with us because you're such an interesting person. So I'd like to finish where we started with your photography and what your life is like now, because you seem to be so at peace and you seem like you're smiling so much when you're talking about what you're doing now. What's next? I love seeing this. What is it that you are wanting still to do? What is it that's driving you to do next? Is it just better at photography? Are there specific things you want to do?
Just like it was in baseball for 20 years. If I came off a Cy Young year, well, how could I clean that year up? Could I become a better hitter? Maybe I go in the batting cage and work on my hitting, the little things, cut your walks down, utilize your pitch count better, whatever it is, find something that you can improve on. And that was my, that's what motivated me every year to get better. And so I do that with photography, and I always want to be better at whatever I do, especially when I'm sharing something. There's, like I said, there's no covering up a bad game when there's 40,000 people out there. They know when you have had a bad game, but they have also know they stand and cheer when you've had a good game. And I would acknowledge that. But, fans everywhere that I played, whether it was in Montreal, Seattle, Houston, Arizona, the New York Yankees, or San Francisco, all the fans meant something to me, especially when you're trying to overcome something in front of you 60 feet, 6 inches. And when you're pitching at the home ballpark and they're cheering you on, that has a huge impact, and it always did. And you're able to sometimes pitch at a level that you never thought you could. And a lot of times, it's the mindset, but it's also the fans' applause and they're motivating you. You got to remember, I had like 240, 250 innings, and I pitched game 6. I threw 6 innings or 7 innings, and now I'm coming back in game 7, pitching an inning and a third. And when I was asked, when I was coming out of the game in game 6, do I think I could pitch tomorrow night? Well, I guess. I don't know. I've never done it before. It's the World Series. So I'm just thankful that everything worked out, and, it was a memorable moment, and it's one that I'm glad that I was a part of and can share. And that's the one thing that when I'm out and about, someone that's been to the game, the World Series, they bring that up. And, I think it's a great opportunity to, listen to their story, what they took from the game.
It's funny because I remember exactly where I was. I had a roommate that was a Yankees fan, and he left town for Game 7, so I had the whole place to myself, and it was a condo. You know the Valley very well, so it was a condo on 19th Avenue in Union Hills, and our condo's front door faced the street. So we had the doors open. Weather was perfect. The Diamondbacks won that game, and I was by myself, so I ran out on the balcony and was screaming. And people driving up and down 19th Avenue were honking their horns, and everybody was cheering. And a friend of mine called me, and a bunch of us jumped in a car, and we drove down to what was then Bank One Ballpark. We drove down to the ballpark to look through the windows to see the celebration. So you've helped provide a memory for us that we'll never forget. And we all remember where we were at the end of that game. And so it means a lot to hear your perspective on that situation, that it means so much to you for the fans, because it meant the world to us.
Well, I mean, once again, when you remove yourself from a situation, the game, 26 years, you tend to see things a little bit more clear than maybe you did then. And so, my mindset isn't what it once was then. And I view things a little bit differently now. There is no expectations on me now, I'm not in the rotation, and, there isn't a lot of hoopla. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed going through those moments, and I think I came out pretty well on the other side. And it made me a better person, and I understand things a lot better now from the game, and things that maybe I didn't see clearly then, I see more now. And I'm definitely not wound as tight. I smile more, and but people got to understand, when I would go out and pitch, I gave a shit what I did.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that nobody else, they did too, but I really did. It was my everything. Every fifth day, if you fall on your face in front of 40,000 people, and then it's the headlines the next day, you take that personal. Some people can just let it roll off their back. Well, that made me better. That made me more determined. And then when I go out and have a good game, well, that's great. I'm glad that you think that. And, that motivates me 5 days later from now to try to replicate that and pitch a little bit better. And so, all of that encompassing, was a melting pot. And so now that's all gone. And now we have, me just going to the ballpark, enjoying games, and saying hello to fans, and occasionally talking to some of the players when they want to talk, for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you did for the memories on the field, but more than anything for me personally, sharing who you are now and a little bit of insight into who you were then, so we get to learn more about you. There's not a lot of people that are willing to come out and share who they are on the inside, and some of the things you've shared in the stories. It means a lot, and I think the people are going to love watching this, and I can't thank you enough for the time.
I appreciate it very much, Mike. Thank you.
All right, Randy Johnson, these Amazing Arizona podcasts are specifically for these stories, and none better than this one, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.